Hey, hey, welcome. Happy New Year, even though we're 2 or 3 weeks into the new year. Gosh, time flies. Thanks for joining me. I am Sarah Maslowski with Moving to Georgia, and this is our very first live stream for the year. So, welcome. Let me know where you're watching from. Today, we're going to be diving into where in the metro Atlanta area housing market is still pretty high. We're going to dive into what exactly does that mean for you as a buyer and talk about what you can expect this year. And of course, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have. So go ahead and pop those into the comments below and we'll make sure that we get to them today. But first off, tell me how you are and how you're doing and where you're watching from. Say hello. Uh, One exciting thing that we had happen here this past weekend, we had snow here in across the North Metro Atlanta area, and that's super exciting. If you watch my videos, you know that I talk about how usually we can expect like one light dusting a year of snow. Last year in 2024, it did not really happen, but they were calling for inches across the metro Atlanta area, and we got a few inches. It snowed, but then it quickly turned into packed ice. My husband made fun of me because we went on a little hike, and there was a picnic table that had ice, or not had ice, it had snow, what looked like snow to me. And so I took a stick and I was going to like draw a message in it, and it was just really compact ice, and I could not draw in it at all. My husband just laughed. He's like, "No, silly, that's ice now." So it was very slippery, and there's still a tiny bit of patches of ice around. You have to look for it, and it kind of throws you off guard because you're driving around and you see something, you're like, "What is that?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, that's left over from the snow that we had several days ago." So whenever it does snow here, it's a state of emergency. Not always, but usually if they're ever calling for inches, everything shuts down. It's not really safe to drive on the roads. I don't know if you are a consumer on TikTok or Instagram, but there was lots of great reels out there where I say great, cars kind of slipping and sliding on the road, people having to abandon their car, men in trucks going out there and pulling people out with tow ropes. So it was an exciting time, and it was nice to see some snow, but definitely glad I don't have to live in it year round, or at least all winter long. We are expecting possibly for some more snow here on Wednesday. So that'll be exciting to see if that actually happens. I had some sweet clients that were visiting all the way from California this past weekend, and unfortunately, they picked like the one time that it was going to snow. They were here doing an exploratory trip, checking out the area, met them for coffee, answered, all kinds of questions. But then it was like, oh, tomorrow you're probably going to have to stay in your hotel because the roads are not going to be really safe to drive. So it's just, bad luck on that part. But hey, at least I got to experience like the coldest that it will get here. Victor, hello. Thanks for joining us. Nice to see you here. And if you're just joining us on the live stream, let me know where you're watching from. We're going to be talking about the hottest housing markets here in the metro Atlanta area. And let's just jump into that because that's what you want to know, right? So, as a real estate agent, what I see here in conversations that I've been having with clients for the past 6 to 9 months, especially when I get people just like you that are watching that reach out thinking about making a move here, and we talk about areas that they're interested in, and inevitably the question is, what's the market like there? And it really depends on the area and where you are seeking out a house. Now, it's probably not going to be any surprise to you that the towns that we cover today, that they are the hottest housing markets in the metro Atlanta area. So specifically, we're going to be looking at year over year median price increases to kind of see which of the metro Atlanta areas are the hottest. So let's get into it. First on the list is Alpharetta. No surprise, right? So let's take a look at some data with this. Oh, first, I thought this was interesting. This is a graph that Redfin puts together. And this is where most people who move to Alpharetta, where they're moving from. And you see here on the map, we've got Florida, parts of California, Washington, and then some New England states. And I have to say, getting an opportunity to talk to each and every one of you all the time, this is very true for me and the clients that we help. And I'm curious to see if anyone watching the live stream, if y'all live in any of these areas, because I bet you do. All right, so let's take a look at some data straight from the MLS system. So here we have Alpharetta, and this is year over year increase in median home sale price. So it might be a little bit small on your screen over here, but if you look over here to the far, I don't know if that's your left or right, sorry. But the median list price or sales price for a house in Alpharetta currently right now is $704,000, and that's up 6.7% compared to last year. Now, a normal amount of appreciation is around 3 to 5%. So we're just above that kind of like normal appreciation. So it's still very much a seller's market in Alpharetta. However, that doesn't mean that you're not going to see some homes in Alpharetta sit on the market a little bit longer. Pricing is so important when it comes to home sales in the area, and that this doesn't exclude the fact that there's still some sellers out there that have some very aspirational prices that they put on their listings and they sit for a while, and then you'll see price reductions. It's very important for you to know those price reductions do not mean that the market is declining. It just means that that particular house is getting more in line with the actual value of where it should have been originally. So we see here that 704,000, that's a almost 7% increase from last year. Now, here's the good news. If you look at the homes that are for sale, inventory compared to last year is up 46%. This is fantastic. This is exactly what we need. And if we look at this, let's stretch this out to a little bit. Let's go back to 5 years. Okay, so if we go back to pre-pandemic levels, and this is why home prices are holding so steady and they're increasing in areas like this almost 7%. And that's because if we look at the inventory, December of 2024, there were 364 houses in Alpharetta on the market. Now, this is also including condos and townhouses. And if you go back and look, let's say December of 2019, 685 houses on the market. So that's almost double the amount of inventory. This is the story that we're seeing all across the board. So the good news is inventory is increasing. We're up 40%. We still got a long ways to go until we can catch up to these pre-pandemic levels. So I'm interested to know where you currently live. Are y'all seeing kind of the same thing in your market? Are you seeing a declining market? Would love to know. Hey, Yvette, watching from Central Florida. So you're definitely not on that South Florida map that I showed earlier where people are moving to Alpharetta from, but Florida is definitely one of the top states that we help clients the most in. And primarily we hear that people are leaving Florida because they're tired of the heat, the humidity, the high cost of living in terms of homeowners insurance. So yeah, thanks for watching and joining us. If you have any questions, let me know. One of the things that I thought was very interesting is if we go back and we look at the average sales price or the median sales price of a house in Alpharetta right now, $704,000. That's still, in my opinion, pretty modest for Alpharetta. So I am going to, wanted to show you some houses in Alpharetta in that 700 to 750 price point so that you could see what that gets you in the area. And if you'll see here, this is on Zillow. In Alpharetta, between 700 and 750, currently as of today, there's only 17 houses for sale in that medium price point. That's not enough, right? And so here you're getting an idea of what homes for sale here look like. We're seeing, some townhouses, single family homes as well, some condos here. But there's just not a whole lot of inventory here in that 700 to 750 price point, especially if you are wanting a single family house. my experience is that you need to spend, you need to get into the 900s in the Alpharetta area, or, 800s to 900s to open up a little bit more inventory. Um, and so if we go to the 800 and 900 price point, we're still only getting 16 results. Now, part of this is because of the time of the year, right? We're in January. We're just coming off of the holiday season. People are gearing up and ramping up for the spring market. In most of these areas that we're going to be talking about, we are looking at areas that are predominantly really heavy with families. So a lot of families don't want to move in the middle of the school year. So we'll see a lot of homeowners in these areas put their homes up for sale late March, beginning of April, so that they can time it right with the school system. Oh, you are moving to Alpharetta next week from Phoenix, Arizona. Welcome. Coming out here just for fun because you want to, or a job. Really interested to see. Most occasionally we help people that are actually relocating for a job, but a lot of people just choose to move out here because they find it to be a more affordable place to live comparatively to where they're moving from. So would love to know that. So it's just no surprise that Alpharetta is one of still the hot metro spots in Atlanta of where people want to be. Great shopping, fantastic restaurants, lots of great things to do in the area, but that the housing is going to come with a pretty price tag. So another area that I don't want to say we overlook it, but it's just north of Alpharetta, and that is the area of Milton. So Milton, Georgia is one of the most expensive metro or areas here in the metro Atlanta area. And primarily it's so expensive because you have a ton of really large mini mansions here in this area. And historically, it is a kind of equestrian community. So you're going to see a lot of really large houses, 4,000 square foot plus homes on acreage with kind of like a mini farm, barn, having, space to put horses and, chickens, but still live in a very elegant upscale community. It's very tiny. A lot of people that consider Alpharetta will also consider Milton, depending upon the price point. The schools here are both equally as great. So that is a good trade-off here. So if we look at, where do we want to go? Okay. Got too many buttons behind the screen. Let's see here. Let's pull up Milton so that you can see what that looks like. Cannot spell. Here we go. Okay, Milton, year over year, it is up almost 10%, so 9.5%. The median sales price in Alpharetta is 1.2 million. That's a lot of pennies, right? And if we look at the average sales price, the average is 1.4. So, it's going to cost you to live in Milton. There are houses for sale less than that 1.2, but they're very, very far and few between. All of these places that we're going to cover that are hotspots in the metro Atlanta area, it's no surprise. They're hotspots because there's not that many homes for sale. Schools are really great. Shopping is really great. Really close access to a lot of jobs. So if you need to be in that specific area, the trade-off is that you're going to have to pay for it. Here's a great reason that kind of explains why Milton has such high prices. And again, it's because the demand is there, but there's not enough homes for sale. So the supply, there's, a huge lack of supply. If we look at what it was like pre-pandemic, January of 2019, there were 853 homes for sale in Milton. Today, there's, 60% of that, 490 for sale. So drastically less inventory for sale in Milton. Okay. And no surprise here. Here's where people are moving from Milton to Atlanta, or this is where the most searches are occurring on Redfin's website in the last quarter of 2024. And I'm going to give you a hint. All of these maps are going to look the same for the areas that we're talking about, just because the trends are there. So I'm interested, if you're watching from any of these states, let me know. We've got Torney joining us. Just buying but not moving. Just love the acreage of homes in McDonough. Yes. So we're going to talk about a little bit about the south of Atlanta, much more affordable area. And we're going to get into that a little bit as well. All right. So another area that is appreciating very steadily, and that is the area of Cumming, which is just north of Alpharetta. So I tell clients this all the time. The reason that Cumming is very sought after is because Alpharetta and the Milton area are so popular, and you have a little bit more affordability just north. So Cumming is just north of Alpharetta. You have a lot of tech jobs in the Alpharetta area. So the commute wise, it's very easy, 20, 30 minutes at the most. And one of the reasons that makes Alpharetta so attractive to a lot of people are the really great schools there. Well, in Cumming, you have equally as great schools. So if you look at greatschools.org and compare those ratings, you're going to find that they're all pretty much the same, 8 and 9s across the board for most of the schools that are distributed for those areas. Now, one of the benefits that you're going to get in Cumming is that the property tax basis is a lot lower than Alpharetta, which is located in Fulton County, whereas Cumming is in Forsyth County. So you're going to save quite a bit of money on property taxes by living in Cumming. Another great trade-off is if new construction is important to you, you're going to find way more new construction options in Cumming than you will in Alpharetta. The reason for that is it is completely built out for the most part in Alpharetta. When a builder or developer can get their hands on some land to put in houses, instead of putting, a few homes in there, they're going to put in as many townhouses as they can because they want to maximize their profit on that little bit of land. When you do find a developer or builder that has found some chunks of land in Alpharetta, usually it's the result because they've bought up some pre-existing houses that were built in the 60s, 70s, bulldozed those down, paid a very pretty penny for that land, and then they're also building, $1.5, $2 million home on top of that. So the home prices for new construction in Alpharetta, especially single family homes, very expensive because it's so rare to find. Whereas in Cumming, you have a lot more space to develop neighborhoods and communities because there's still a lot of farmland left in Cumming where that has not been bought up yet by developers. And so one of the things you're going to notice, and we'll take a look at this, is when you're looking at the sales prices in Cumming, the closer into Alpharetta, or the more that you are on the south side of the county, you're going to pay a higher price for the house because of its proximity to Alpharetta. The further up north in the county that you get, the more house you're going to get for the money, or the more new construction options you're going to find. So those are just some things to keep in mind. So let's look at the stats for Cumming. That's kind of small for y'all, right? Okay. All right. So Cumming, year over year, when we look at median sales price, home prices are up 6.6%. So not as strong as Milton, a little bit higher than Alpharetta, but still coming in strong at 6.6%. So the median sales price here is almost $600,000. When we look at listing activity, good thing is that listings are up 23% compared to last year, but we're still lacking that supply of what we normally have and what we need in order to bring prices a little bit more affordable. And we'll talk a little bit more about that affordability. But you're going to have a lot of really great options here in Cumming. And if we look at where people are moving to Cumming, well, here we go. The map looks exactly the same as the other towns do. So, you're probably watching from some of these areas as well. if you have any questions about any of these areas or areas that I'm not talking about that you would like some insight on or have questions on, let me know because we're answering those here right now. So I appreciate you giving me your opinion or your questions or your feedback on some of this data. I greatly appreciate it. We've got SM Travel from Colorado, possibly looking at a work relocation, originally from the Carolinas, looking for acreage and or horse properties further out an hour from Atlanta. So it really depends on what other amenities or conveniences that you want to be close to in terms of what you're looking for. The further out from Atlanta that you get, the more affordable things like this become. On the northeastern part of Metro Atlanta, so Jefferson, which is in Jackson County, the Brazelton area, Commerce, Winder, there's some beautiful property out there. North Hall County, so North Gainesville, there's some great, properties with acreage in these areas, but you're still going to have to invest in that land. It's not, kind of gone are the days where we can buy, a house with a couple of acres and it still be under 500,000. For the most part, any home within an hour and a half drive of the Metro Atlanta area with a couple of acres is going to, put you north of that 500,000 price point. But they're out there. It just depends on, what your budget is and the other things that you want to be close to. Obviously, there's a lot of these in the Milton area that has probably exactly what you're looking for, and it's going to have a lot higher price tag, and that might be what you're looking for. So you will have a lot of good options. It just may not be as affordable as what you want. And this leads me to a good question. Oftentimes we have clients that reach out and say, hey, we want to be in this area, but we want to look at a piece of land and we want to build our own house on it. Totally understand why that is so appealing, because sometimes when you look at your new construction options and you see majority of what your options are going to be in neighborhoods. And if you can find a home that's not in a neighborhood, that's new construction, it's often still kind of exposed or on a busy road. And it's not that idyllic setting where you want to be kind of set back off the road with the long driveway so that you can't see traffic and you can't really see your neighbors. So totally get why that's appealing. If we could go do this, or if I would let my husband, that's where he would want to be. And it is hard to find land suitable for that. And it's not cheap. You're going to pay well for that piece of land because so many people want it and because the area is so developed and there's so much demand for housing that we experience. When there is a good piece of property available for sale, it's not uncommon to have a builder buy that up, split that lot up into 4 separate parcels, put 4 homes on it, and sell it. So not necessarily saying that to you, SM, but that's also my initials. But just in general, we, help a lot of people that reach out for that. And the options just aren't as abundant as what you would wish. So I usually kind of guide people to look on Zillow and see what you can see. Zillow is pulling directly from our MLS system. So if what you're looking for is not available on Zillow, it's not as if there's some magic inventory that agents have that we're keeping to ourselves that's not available to the public. Maybe it used to be that way back in the day. Occasionally, we might know of some things that are similar to other things that are on the MLS that might be coming up for sale. But when it comes to stuff like that, or the price point that you're looking for, if you can't find examples of it on Zillow, it's likely because it doesn't exist in that price point anymore. It's likely much more expensive. So it's always good to kind of explore those different price points. If you're not finding what you're looking for, increase your budget by a couple $100,000, even if you're not going to spend that, just to see what it looks like. And then that can give you a good idea of like, oh, okay, what we're looking for doesn't exist here in our area. And maybe this may not be, the right part of the state for you, but we can definitely help with that. Stephen would probably have to look south of Atlanta. Yes. Yeah, I would agree with that. So that brings me to, I thought this was interesting. So this is Zillow's housing market snapshot of the metro Atlanta area. Now, it doesn't quite cover Hall County, Gainesville area on here, but this heat map over here shows, everything up here in the yellows and oranges. That's showing year-over-year home price appreciation in zip codes in the metro Atlanta area. So we've got like Atlanta right here. And so you see here south of Atlanta, this, immediate, an hour south of Atlanta, home prices here are actually decreasing. And then you get a little bit outside of Atlanta into the really south metro area. There's a lot of land out here, a lot of opportunity out here for land and houses. The downside, though, is that there's not a ton of jobs in this area, and there's not a ton of, conveniences like great shopping or Target or, a lot of restaurants that you may enjoy. It just depends on, the lifestyle that you're looking for. But yes, this, immediate area south of Atlanta, you're going to find more affordable homes. And there's less demand for the areas down here comparatively to the north side of Atlanta, the North Metro Atlanta area, which is why you see, the differences in color there. And primarily it's because of the schools, employment opportunities, and in demand, which is kind of what's driving that. You see the home values here in this pocket of area. This is the Alpharetta, Milton, Cumming area that we're talking about. And you see that those are increasing. We've got this one little tiny, very hot spot down here in Atlanta. So some interesting insights that I thought was good, that kind of shows the difference between North Metro Atlanta and South Metro Atlanta. Let's see. Out of Johns Creek, Swanee, Buford, where is the lowest property tax? So they're all in Gwinnett County. So pretty much the property tax is the same across the board, unless you're living in city proper. So Buford City, if you're within the city limits of Buford, they have pretty reasonable property taxes. So you're going to pay majority of your property taxes to the city. There's going to be a supplement that the county is going to charge. And so Buford City is pretty reasonable, although home prices in Buford City tend to be on the more expensive end because the school system is so great in Buford City. I can't remember. There's only like 18 or so cities in Georgia that also have their own school system. They don't allow it anymore. So Buford City has a school system, and it's in Gwinnett County, and Gwinnett County also has their own school system. But specifically, Buford City schools are very highly ranked. So we get a lot of people seeking out to move to Buford City. And it's really interesting if you drive through, recently made a video on Buford and showed you some driving shots of like Buford City, what it's like. And you'll see these great big new construction, really nice homes. And right next to it is a house that was built in 1960 and grandma still lives there, and no exterior updates, but that really nice house next to it is still going to sell for $1.1 million. And that's normal. And that's just how it is, because there's a demand for that type of housing within that geographic area. They don't care necessarily about what's around. They just want to be in that very specific area and willing to pay for it because the demand is there, because of the school systems. So city tax or property taxes are going to be less in that area. Now, the good thing is that Gwinnett County does give a senior homestead exemption depending upon your age. Most of these senior exemptions start at age 65. Some counties are much more generous than others when it comes to what you're exempt from on the property tax bill. But the good thing is that Gwinnett County does offer, a good chunk that you can be exempt from when you're those age. Compare that to like Fulton County. They do offer some, but it's like very, very minimal. It's also income based. If you look at Forsyth County, where Cumming is, In Hall County, they offer you 100% exemption from your school portion of your property taxes, which is going to account for about 60% of your bill. So once you turn age 65 or 70, depending upon what the county rules are, you're immediately cutting your property tax bill, by 60%. And there are no income restrictions in those counties. So each county is a little bit different. So that is a good question. BW, also, are the school assigned on Zillow for the properties accurate? Yes and no. So oftentimes they're not accurate. Zillow is strange, and some of these other websites like Redfin, they will pull from the closest school to that address. And that's not always the case of what that home is zoned for. So the most accurate way to get accurate results for where a home is zoned for a school is to get listings directly from a real estate agent like myself, where we can filter out and send you homes specific to a school district if you're wanting to be in a very specific school district. That's the way to get the most accurate readings. One thing to know, there's some school systems like Beaufort City, even though it's such in demand, you can pay outside tuition so long as you transport your child there, and pick them up every single day. In certain grade levels, you're allowed to kind of like enter into the school system there by paying tuition. So they open it up, I think right now it's to kindergarten and 8th grade. So it just kind of depends on what age your children are. And sometimes they also kind of grandfather in siblings and stuff like that. So there's some creative things to think about when it comes to schooling. Another thing that I didn't quite think about that I should talk about more, I was having conversations with another client that reached out that's thinking about moving, and schools are very important to her because her child is, in a school that's very challenging with a curriculum, and her child is gifted and she's really thriving in that challenging environment. So one thing here in Georgia is that some schools offer what's called the International Baccalaureate track whenever a student gets to the high school level. That gives them college credit while they're taking high school classes. It's above kind of like an AP course. It's incredibly demanding and challenging. And typically within a school system, there's only one high school that will offer that track. If your kid is, talented enough to get accepted to that type of program, it doesn't matter where in the county you live, your child can go to whatever that IB school is. So definitely something to keep in mind if you have a child that kind of trends a little bit more to the exceptionally gifted. Bethlehem is pretty nice if you can handle being in cow country. So Bethlehem is in north part of Gwinnett County. And what's great is that there's all these kind of like little towns that still put you in great proximity to all the amenities that you would want and need, but are often kind of overlooked on a map if you're not working with a real estate agent that's really well versed on all these areas that you should consider. So yes, Bethlehem is kind of similar to the north part of Cumming, where you still have a lot of undeveloped farmland left, but it's growing and you're seeing quite a lot of, growth and development that way. So homestead exemption to reduce property taxes. You do have the option of filing for homestead exemption. Everyone should. The great thing is that you only have to do it once after you purchase a property. Most homes that you're interested in, whenever you look at the property tax bill, that amount that you're seeing is already going to be reflective of that homestead exemption, because normally the homeowner has already filed for that homestead exemption. So the rate that is public out there of what you're seeing for the property taxes is already reflective of that discount. But you still have to apply for it, one time in order to keep that homestead exemption on the property. So it is always very important to do that. And homestead exemption is going to save you a tiny bit on your property taxes, but here in Georgia, it doesn't save a significant amount. It might reduce your property tax bill by a couple of $100s. So definitely not anything to shy away from, but it's not going to save thousands. Okay, so let's take a look at another hot spot here in the Metro Atlanta area, and that is Johns Creek. So Johns Creek is south of um, south of Beaufort in the Swanee area, getting a little bit closer into um, Atlanta. Now, Johns Creek was an area that used to be part of Alpharetta, and they, back in the late 90s, don't quote me on that, broke off and formed their own city. So, a unique thing about Johns Creek is that typically, if you're considering Alpharetta, you're going to consider Johns Creek. And in fact, there's even some neighborhoods where you will see Johns Creek addresses and Alpharetta addresses because of how the boundary lines are done within the cities, and you have neighborhoods that kind of straddle both of these areas. So equally as great as schools, but the prices are going to be a little bit different. So if we look at the median sales price of a home in Johns Creek, it's up almost 13% compared to last year. You see that the median sales price is $812,000. And, that's a little bit higher than the $700,000 that you experienced in Alpharetta. Johns Creek is beautiful, but it's pretty much filled with a lot of neighborhoods, a lot of beautiful neighborhoods. You have a lot of gated neighborhoods, a lot of country clubs, a lot of golf courses there. And Johns Creek is also, because it was a developed city or a newly developed city, it does not have a traditional downtown, old school, charming area. But they are developing this great new mixed use outdoor living, shopping, work, play type facility called the Medley. It's going to have fantastic shopping, fantastic restaurants. That is in the process of being built now. It's going to take about 2 years to develop. The great people that were behind the Avalon are also developing the Medley, or, some of the planners are part of that same project. So it's going to be really great, and it's going to give Johns Creek that hub or that, city center type feeling, so that the community has a place to go for events and enjoy, shopping and stuff like that. So Johns Creek is very much in demand. It's a little bit closer into Atlanta, so that's why, the home prices are a little bit more there. Overall, are you seeing home prices decreasing and supply increasing in Gwinnett County compared to last year? Really depends on the town. So if we look at Johns Creek, home prices are up 13% compared to last year. Listings slightly have increased, since last year. Oh, sorry. Are you? Okay, yeah, you can see this tab. But, inventory has slightly increased, and it's really going to depend on the area. So the next area that's good to consider in Gwinnett County is Swanee. And if we compare the new listings in Swanee compared to Johns Creek, you've got a little bit more homes listed for sale in Swanee. If we look at the median sales price compared to last year, sales are up 8% almost in Swanee compared to last year, but more affordable than Johns Creek. So it really just depends on the area, the school zone, the price point of what you're looking into. If we look at Beaufort, which is just north of Swanee, still in Gwinnett County, you see here that, again, we're getting a little bit further north outside of the perimeter of Atlanta, gets more affordable. The average or the median sales price there is $510,000. That's up 7% compared to last year. So it's not necessarily getting more affordable, but you can find more affordable pockets to kind of fit your need and what you're looking for. I think if we look at Beaufort City, no, okay. I thought it would let me do it by Beaufort City Schools, but it won't. No, okay. I'll have to look into the other part of the MLS system to kind of see what the average sales price are or is for Beaufort City High School, so you can kind of see how that school system impacts the demand and the prices there. So great questions. Yvette said that she's lived in DeKalb County for most of the 80s, considering moving back near Houston from Florida. Watched a lot of your videos and appreciate. Oh, thank you. Well, I appreciate that. So, the towns that we're covering today are where home prices have appreciated the most and where there's the most demand for. But the great thing is that there's still a lot of other great cities that are in great proximity to all of these other great towns that are also great in their own right, like Houston, which is right next to Brazelton, one in the same, essentially. And there's some really great neighborhoods over there as well. Lots of great areas are growing. So don't take this the wrong way that because we're talking about these hotspots, it doesn't mean that there's not also a lot of other great areas around the Metro Atlanta that are going to have, really great homes that are fit your budget, your needs, and what you're looking for. So yeah, love Houston, love the Brazelton area. That is growing a lot. So a lot of great developments and neighborhoods that are still in the process of being built out there. Prices will never decrease. Yeah, I think especially right now, the type of market that we're in, it would take a very strong recession in order for us to see home prices to decrease. And we don't want to wish that, right? Just because that would be devastating. So that's not to say that it's never going to happen. I just think it's very, very, very far away for the market conditions to be right for that type of thing to happen. Even if we were to experience some sort of depression in the economy, we're not going to see the influx of foreclosures and things like that we did in 2007 and 2008 caused the market to crash, and that contributed to home prices really declining in value because we had that flood of inventory and a flood of people that could not afford their homes, and they were upside down. They had negative equity in their homes because lenders were giving 105% loan to value ratio loans. And so all those lending practices have greatly changed. We've also had some unprecedented growth in the real estate market due to the pandemic. Almost everyone right now, if they lost their job and they were forced to sell their house, they can sell it and make a profit, even after paying off their loans and, paying any fees to sell their house. There's also, we've never had more homeowners today that just own their home outright. I think the statistic is somewhere like around 30 to 40%, which was shocking to me, that completely just own their home, outright. So we've never had as much wealth as what we do in the real estate market in our homes than what we do today. So it's going to take a lot for home prices to come down. Another great question, BW. A lot of listing with status is active under contract. So this is a funny marker indicator for our MLS system here in this area. It means that it is under contract, but typically that house is still underneath what's called the due diligence period, meaning that the buyer is still in their inspection phase. And so during that inspection phase, that due diligence phase, a buyer here in Georgia can back out of a contract for any reason. It doesn't have to be because of an inspection. It could just be because they woke up and changed their mind. And so oftentimes you'll see agents will list it underneath active under contract just to kind of indicate like there's still a possibility that this home may come back on the market. So anytime I have clients that are interested in a house that is marked as active under contract or even pending, I'll reach out to that agent and say, hey, how's everything looking? How's it going? Sometimes we get indicators that things are not going good, and something's not working out with the lending, and it might be coming back on the market. So I guess to kind of go back to the state of the market right now, one thing that has changed over the past couple of years, even though we're not seeing drastic home price appreciation or home prices falling, we are seeing a lot more homes go under contract and then come back on the market. Um, and that's typically because the home buyers financing, something happened with that. Either they found out that the home payment was going to be way more than what they could afford. They got cold feet. We're just seeing a lot more homes go under contract and then back on the market. So this is something that's very important for you to ask the question of as a buyer. You can see the history of a house on Zillow, right? So you can see if it was under contract or marked as pending and then came, back as active. It's You always want to find out, why did it come back on the market? So sometimes it's because of a result of that home inspection, where a buyer decided to back out from active under contract status because they discovered something very wrong with the house. So, for example, we just had a client today go and see a home that was marked as pending and then it was back on the market. So we called and asked why. Got that agent to share a little bit more with us, and they said that there was a siding issue with the house, and the seller went ahead and replaced some of the siding and got that issue taken care of. Well, that guy gave us, a good indication that we should look a little bit closer at that. And so when we were at the house, we noticed that, yeah, there was a section that was repaired, but a lot more needed to be done. So always, good questions to ask and find out why homes come back on the market. Yes, I would love for you to reach out and discuss particulars. That is what I'm here for. You can find my contact information directly below this video. There should be a description there where you can click a link and book a call with me. This is what I'm here for. I love helping clients just like you that watch the videos and decided they want to make a move here, and they reach out, and I'd love to be your real estate agent. Homes here do not restrict water usage. There's been times where in extreme periods of drought, they'll restrict you from watering your grass. I remember there used to be, like, depending upon if your yard or if your address ended in an even or odd number, your watering days for outside water was like a Tuesday or a Thursday versus Monday or Wednesday. It's very, 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 very rare for that to happen. So good to know. I also had someone make a comment the other day on a video asking if we had to deal with earthquake insurance. And I was like, never heard of that. And they were out in Utah, and they were saying that they were having to get earthquake insurance out there, which was, obviously different parts of the country have higher seismic activity, but that was an expense that was not even on my radar that someone would have to deal with. So great question. And I'm always learning so many different things about how things are different in different parts of the country, just from, clients like you or viewers that ask these really great questions, so I can help educate people a lot better. Let's see here. Watching from cold central Kentucky. How cold is cold, Clara? Because right now it feels cold outside, like in the 40s, but yeah, I do appreciate that we get a little bit of a cold spell, because I like to wear, sweaters. I grew up in South Georgia and lived there pretty much all my life until we moved here about 10 years ago. And, if you got to wear your jacket or your sweater, I remember getting sweaters for Christmas and just cannot wait until it was cold enough to, like, sweat to death wearing your new sweater. 23. Yeah, that's cold. Did y'all get any snow here when we had that cold spell that seems like it's still where you are? Yeah. If a buyer backs out of the contract due to the inspection, will the inspection report be available to the next buyer? So this is a little tricky. So technically that inspection report is owned by the buyer, right? Because the buyer paid for that. The buyer has the option of sharing that listing or sharing that inspection report with the seller. Now, technically, by law, the seller, anything that they learn from that inspection report, they're supposed to update the seller's disclosure. So I'm sure it's like this in your state as well, but sellers here are expected to fill out a seller's disclosure statement that states, everything that could potentially be wrong with the house or any knowledge that they have of any defects of their home. So, for example, let's say that inspection report uncovered mold or a rodent problem. They should then, disclose that or update their disclosures. Some sellers are not always as honest as what you would want them to be. So, it's always an extra indicator to be very prudent with your own home inspection for a house that's come back on the market, especially if the buyer backed out for the inspection. Now, I've also dealt with listing agents who, whenever you ask them, why did someone back out of the contract, they'll say, oh, it's just because the buyer changed their mind. When come to find out, it was really because of an inspection issue. I found that out because I knew the agent that had the home under contract. Because here in Georgia, on the MLS system, we can see whenever a buyer goes under or a home goes under contract and who that agent is that's representing the buyer. So my people had their eye on this home. We saw that it came back on the market. I knew who it was under contract with. And so I called him and I'm like, hey, what happened with this? And he told me that it was because of the inspection. When I asked the listing agent that question, she told me it was just because the buyers changed their mind. Another thing to be on the lookout for is even if the listing agent will share that inspection report with you, it's always good to evaluate how thorough that inspection report is. And depending upon your level of knowledge, you may think it's a good inspection report, but I can't tell you, the times where we've asked for an inspection report that's already been done on a home and the listing agent will share it. And I'll look at that inspection report and I'm like, this was a very crappy home inspector because, at this point, I can guarantee you that if you are buying a house, a home inspector is going to find at least one outlet in the house where the GFCI is not working. There's going to be at least one window that won't open properly. There's going to be at least some area in that home that needs more additional caulking. Like there's just standard things that you expect to see on an inspection report that indicate that home inspector has done a great, thorough job. And so if I don't see those things on an inspection report, I know that this is a home inspector that just kind of half-assed the report and they weren't very thorough. So, I would always still recommend getting your own inspection report. But yes, a long-winded answer to say that yes, you can sometimes get that inspection report. But the listing agent or the seller, they are not under any obligation to share it with you. So lots to unpack there. I worked with a listing agent recently with the seller, and we had, typically whenever I'm representing a buyer and we have an inspection done and there's things that need to be repaired from the inspection report or, things that I discussed with the buyer, we're like, yeah, the seller needs to fix this in order for us to feel comfortable with moving forward with the home. I send over that inspection report with them so that they can see the evidence of that. And they can also see, hey, they didn't ask us to address these little things. They're just wanting us to focus on the medium to big things. And this listing agent said, do not send me the inspection report. Just send me what you want the seller to address. And the reason that she didn't want that whole inspection report is because she didn't want to become aware of something that now the sellers have to disclose. So some listing agents operate from that standpoint. Doug asked, how prevalent are open door houses these days? Incredibly shady company. They overtly hide defect material or material defects. Yes. So no, I can say it. I've given my opinion on open door many, many times on lots of different videos. Hands down, for the most part, I have not had good experiences with open door. I always tell my clients anytime they send over a house that's listed by open door that we need to be incredibly careful in evaluating that house. Oftentimes it's lipstick on a pig. And the reason that you threw Mark Spain in there, for those of you that are watching from outside of the Southeast region, Mark Spain is a name of an agent who also owns a brokerage, and they make cash offers on houses and then turn around and list them. So very big brokerage here in the Southeast, but they have a partnership with Open Door. So oftentimes they list Open Door properties. So that's why he said March, Spain. Yeah, I always strongly discourage my clients from considering an Open Door property unless it was like the only one and it just ticked off all these boxes and we had a really great inspection. But they're notoriously hard to deal with, especially when it comes to inspection related issues. They're very hard to negotiate with. Sometimes you'll see an Open Door property sit on the market for like 4+ months with 20 price reductions, but they're only decreasing the price by like $1,500 at a time, which is just ridiculous, because they have some sort of algorithm that says every 10 days we're going to drop the price by this. So just things to keep in mind, but good point. Oh, thanks, Clara. Waiting for things to line up. Well, it's never too early. Sometimes we can help ahead of time. One of the ways that we can help ahead of time is connecting you with a really great listing agent where you're at. Obviously, you may have a great relationship with an agent that you know and trust, but I'm going to give you an example of some great clients that we're helping buy here in Georgia, and they have their house listed down in Florida. And I have to tell you, that whole situation down there in Florida with getting their home sold, it's a little bit of a mess. And, it always pains me when I don't have my clients being taken great care of, or have knowledgeable agents that are doing everything they can to keep everything on track. Because for the most part, while we as agents can't control everything, there's a lot of mitigation that we can do and a lot of prevention around problems that may arise in real estate transactions, and making sure that it's as smooth for everybody as possible, especially when you're buying and selling at the same time. It adds just kind of like an extra layer of potential problems that could go wrong that we can, help preventatively mitigate. And you're dealing with snow, ice, and snow. Cleared the trail. Oh, that's a lot. I love the grass in Kentucky. So we drive from here in the Gainesville area up to my in-laws in Indianapolis, and we stop at the rest stops there in Kentucky in the summer, and y'all just have the most beautiful grass. And I'm like, we need that here. I heard that Georgia's a property owner liability payer. I'd have to do more research on that. I don't know. So that's something for me to look into. Ruth, currently living in New York, interested in moving to Georgia. What areas do you recommend that have close shopping centers and affordable living, family of 6? Well, depends on what you consider affordable. I definitely, it really depends on your budget, for me to kind of help guide you in the right direction, but we would love to help you. There is a link to a form under this video that you can fill out, and we can schedule a call, and you can share a little bit more details of things of what you're thinking about, and we can kind of help point you a little bit more in the right direction. So the good thing is that, if you don't know, and that's a great question that Ruth is asking, whenever we get to know your budget and some of those other shopping center type experiences that you're looking for, then we can say, oh, you should look at Brazelton, and you should look at Gainesville, and you should look at Cumming. And then you can go to my channel and you can see all of the videos that we've made there, so that you can learn more to see, like, yeah, I kind of like this area, but no, this doesn't feel right for us. So that is definitely a way that I can help point you a little bit more closely in the right direction, depending upon that budget. Oh, Doug, you bought an Open Door, presented a clear septic letter, and tried to deny inspection. Septic was not functional and had to be replaced. We caught them red-handed. 30,000 mound system. So did Open Door pay for that septic system? I hope so, because yeah, that's crazy. So speaking of septics, they're very common here in Georgia, and you want to make sure that you have them inspected before you purchase a house with a septic system. Especially if you're looking at buying an older house. I mean, you're going to want to do it regardless, but especially if you're buying an older house. We bought a house that was built in 1967. And when I went to go down to the county to get a copy of our septic records, they said that we were lucky that we had a septic record because they didn't even require septic records back then. And we had like a hand-drawn piece of paper to like where to locate our septic. And it was just literally a hand-drawn piece of paper. And so back in the 60s and 70s, the septic systems were made out of concrete. And I just had a client recently, we had a septic inspection done. They're buying a house that was built in the 70s. And sure enough, a part of the concrete tube or pipe has now corroded and needed to be replaced. And so thankfully we were able to catch that and get that solved and paid for by the seller so that they have a great functioning, working septic system. So for the most part, so long as they're kept up well, you don't have to worry about any long-term issues, especially for, homes built in the 80s or later. So good insight. They did, you were under contract. Good job. So yeah, great job. Glad you stood up for yourself and got that taken care of. Thank you, Clara. That's such a nice suggestion. Yes, we put a lot of energy, time, and effort into these great videos. And so if there's ever any way that we can help you with the move, we would love to help you. Yes, Doug, this is very good. It is a buyer beware state. So Georgia is that, meaning that it is up to you as a buyer consumer to fully vet out the house before you purchase it, regardless of what the seller says. Now, you can go back and sue the seller if it was known that they were, withholding information, and it's very difficult to do. So at the end of the day, you need to feel very comfortable and confident about the house that you're buying. And that means having a great home inspector, and, feeling good about the house before you move forward with that purchase. So thankfully here in Georgia, during that due diligence time period, you can terminate for any reason. Doesn't even have to be inspection related. So that's, something that should give you a lot of comfort in knowing that. A normal typical time frame for a home inspection time period or that due diligence time period is 7 days. I work with some really great home inspectors, and usually we can have that home inspection done, the very next day after we go under contract or the following day. So those timeframes can move very fast. If we discover something in that home inspection, and let's say that we need more time to get some experts in, like a mold inspector or a roofer, we can always go back to the seller and say, hey, there's some questions that came up on this home inspection. Before we just jump to conclusions and say that all of this is wrong, let's bring in some experts in this field to give their opinion and see what they say. And so usually if we need more time, a seller should always be more than agreeable to allow time for that expert to come out there and give opinion. If they're not agreeable to that, it's a red flag. So yeah, great points to point out. Y'all, I am so happy that we had such a great discussion tonight. We post videos every single Monday here on the channel, educating you about what it's like to live here, the different towns, different neighborhoods, developments that you should know that are coming up. So please make sure you've liked and subscribed here to the channel so that you can get alerted to that. If you're thinking about making a move, reach out to me using the link underneath this video. You can find my phone number, online. If you are not my friend or following me on Instagram, please come follow me over here. That's not showing my Instagram. Oh, hold on, y'all. Well, I thought I had this all figured out and I don't. Okay, now I think you should be able to see it. All right, yep. Come find me on Instagram, friend me, follow me. Posting some really great videos of all the great things that are coming soon so that you're in the know of what to expect in all these great areas that we cover here. I'd love to tell you about all the great new restaurants that are coming because I get to go personally try them out and tell you what I think of them. There's a great restaurant that just opened up in Gainesville called Sully's Steamers, and it's steamed bagel sandwiches, which sounds a little strange. But y'all, had it today and it exceeded my expectations. I think they originated out of Greenville, South Carolina, and they're kind of like, there's 15 or so different locations, but if you're looking in Gainesville and we're out house hunting, I might have to swing you by there and we might have to grab some lunch or a breakfast sandwich because it's so good. All right, awesome. So thanks everyone for joining us tonight. So happy that you're here. And if I can help you in any way, let me know. But I will see y'all on the next live stream. See you later.